Hello. I turned on the wrong mic. Hey, let's just think of the prime in. Yeah, we've got the road ahead finally, and it's a lot of what we've been talking about in the few weeks leading up to this. It's a lot of stuff that makes sense, but I think we'll also spend a lot of today talking about the general state of the game and what wasn't in here, and what I'm definitely looking to hopefully see in the rest of the year. Cause yeah, it's the this feels like we are approaching the point where we are very content oriented and there is less focus on stuff like PvP, stuff like quality of life, stuff like mod features. And yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll chat about it. But anyway, let me see if I can find something appropriately chill. Oh, let's try something like this. Hopefully this is not going to straight take it down. Okay. I'm gonna chill out here in the void. The black void. The text is very... well. Yeah, I'll be... move it anyway. Alright, I'm chilling out here in the void. Hello. So, yeah, I don't remember where CG first mentioned to focus on Phantom Menace. I tried to find it at one point and couldn't. But I kind of just continue to operate under that assumption despite not having proof. Is like, okay, if the Phantom Menace focus, you assume it's the next raid, you assume there will be characters for the next raid. They said it's going to be every 9 months or whatever. Yeah, and what we see today is a lot of stuff that you would kind of expect for that. The new bonus zone. I assume this is for territory battles? The new bonus. New bonus zone, we're working on leaning heavily on rebels. I think a lot of people in the past few months have talked about Mandalore making a lot of sense, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and it has a little bit to do with rebels. And there were like a couple episodes there. Is required. Oh, the requirements have been finalized. You can expect this over newer Mandalorian characters. It sounds like Mandalore. Mandalore makes a lot of sense. Ties into a lot of new stuff, old stuff, fits the thematics, fits the era, fits the focus of the mode. CG's been working on Mandalorians recently. You would imagine that they probably did so for a reason. So yeah, we assume Mandalore's coming to TB, sure. Still a little bit of, like, surprised that we haven't... okay. I think one of the real tests is going to be what happens when Cal returns for a second time. See if CG has anything planned for Zepho, because right now it's kind of just like a small bonus planet. You get some special mission currency. You get a little bit of stuff. But the thing that made the most sense to me is we saw Riva. We saw bonus planets, and the thought that I kind of figured would be, as time passes, as the TB grows older, that it would expand out and that there would be more Riva-like characters. We haven't seen that yet, but the release schedule for Grand Inquisitor and Riva hitting was also kind of weird originally. Cal hasn't returned. I haven't entirely given up hope on that, but the fact that we're talking about a new bonus planet already, still without seeing any, like, Bode-related thing, makes me think that that's probably not going to happen at this point. Who the hell knows? Calling out Sabine and not the other Phoenix as well? Or Izatel? Yeah, true. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's just like, hey, in this node you have to use Sabine. And if you have R9 Phoenix, then you can use Phoenix, but, like, you know, you're gonna end up using Rey or whatever, right? That's just the kind of the nature of the TB. It expects you to spend an amount of relics that the game does not make sense to spend, so in reality you throw synergy out the window and you just find whichever kits can overpower it despite the handicap. So yeah, I mean, yeah, Mandalore made a lot of sense. They're doing Mandalore. Well, we don't know that they're doing Mandalore, but it sounds like they're doing Mandalore. They have all but said that they're going to be doing Mandalore. So, yeah, they're doing Mandalore. And yeah, as we talked about it, if they're doing a new raid, if they're doing a Phantom Menace focus, yeah, I even called this out, right? I think the marquee, I think it added a new locale for like the Hills of Naboo, so it's like, okay, they made the resources for it. This makes a lot of sense. They're probably gonna do Naboo. And yeah, they're doing Naboo. I'm excited to see a new raid at this point. So when the bike raid came out, I was pretty cold on it. I like the base game mechanics. I think Crate was an excellent example of good puzzle design for the base game mechanics. As people figured out the whole Imperial Trooper evasion thing, it became a way more intuitive of a event design. And I would say I don't really have too many gripes with the raid at this point. I'm pretty I appreciate that it's once a week now. I appreciate that I can get all the battles done in 15 minutes. Still really wish that there was more incentive to want to do better at the raid, because, I mean, let's see, as you jokingly mentioned off the top, what team should I R9 right now for the new raid? And still has not changed as a bike raid. That so slight tangent, but it's the same exact thing I was gonna say. It's just a different way to say it. I took Crate extremely seriously when it came out. I came within reaching distance of having 5 2.7 teams, and it was right about the time that I reached to the 5th 2.7 team that I kind of came to the realization that, yo, the raid is ending way sooner than we thought. And you not only do not gain anything, but you are actively losing resources for putting investments on for the raid. And it just completely twisted my perspective. So at the time, people didn't really seem to care about Crate. Everybody that I saw was just phoning it in, and that was fine. I didn't expect people to yeah, man, you just gotta what a remod it. Run these teams. It's I didn't expect it, right? But then Bike Raid came around, and interest seems to have cropped up. Guilds seem to be taking it more seriously, and that's cool. But I feel like a lot of people are falling into the trap that I fell into in Crate, and I tried to warn people of this, and it hasn't helped. That people are falling into the trap again of oh man, I'm gonna R8 all these. I'm gonna R8 Chirpa, and I'm gonna R8 Stark, and I'm gonna R8. I mean, Akbar, I think I either did R8 or R7, because Akbar, you assume where CG's probably headed, that you assume Akbar is gonna get a second wind at some point. That if you were going to do any investment that on paper right now was for the raid only, you would assume Akbar becomes more playable in the future. Sure. But the rest, I've just been watching people, and it's they just keep investing in this bike raid. It's man, you do you, I guess. It's your account. You go have fun with it. But the true state of the raid right now, I think, if you are trying to be a good player, smart with your resources, you need to know or have a pretty good idea of what your guild's target is going to be asking you. And then we're kind of entering, when I first started playing this game, and the few years after, before requirements got higher, but events got easier, it used to be, you would min spec, you would play Thrawn's event with gear 7 Phoenix or whatever, right? The goal was to get the objective with the minimum possible, and that's really how I see raids now. I am giving resources to as few irrelevant characters as possible. I'm trying to optimize teams, and I'm trying to get in and out of the raid with as little commitment as possible, so that I can maximize the rewards and put it on other stuff that's actually going to matter. Because I'm very curious on what the actual count of how many R8 Chirpas are running around, how many R8 Starks are running around, stuff like that. It's I don't know, man. We shall see. But hey, you talk about a Galactic Republic raid, you talk about people giving R8s to a lot of unnecessary stuff. Galactic Republic is a very big faction, guys. It's a very big faction. There's a lot of characters in that team. There's a lot of characters you don't use outside of what would assume to be the upcoming raid. You can R8 those too? Like, I'm waiting for the like wave of cynicism or realization to hit. I'm happy with the trade of time effort for saving resources. Well, I mean, in my case, with the bike raid right now, it's not really a trade-off, because again, like, for the relics that I have committed, I get all my battles done in 15 minutes with the remod. So, right? If someone's like, I don't want to remod, so I spend a bunch of R8s, I still don't really see that value trade, but if that value trade makes sense for them, go with God. If you don't have hot utils or whatever, I still think a hot util subscription is less than what they might be spending to R8 extra stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Gideon Speeder Bike says hi. Impossible if US resets is your goal next time. I mean, yeah, in my case, for the stuff that I have and the stuff that I made, I gave some extra relic investments. I was definitely boosted a little bit by having stuff like R9 Shore already, but I didn't really have to decide or make some decisions. It was just like, all right, I've got that. I'll run it. But I would rather, like, my Stark was Relic 5 or whatever. And, like, if I'm given the choice between, like, Stormtrooper or Shore Trooper to Relic 8, or, like, Stark or Chirpa, it's the tanks. It's the tanks that I'm gonna use. It's the tanks that I posted GAC that get me whole. That's just relevant. That's just, that is in use. Right? We're almost reaching, again, we're in a weird way, we're kind of circling back to an earlier stage of the game, where it used to be that, like, you would see something on someone's account, it would be like a stamp of like, oh, they did this for that, right? It was like, I mean, you could look at someone's Phoenix team or someone's Ewok team and get an idea of how much they overinvested or didn't want to deal with restart RNG for those events. I think like Droideka and Zeta, pretty much everyone did Droideka and Zeta. I was like one of the only people who did it. Listen, Zetas were expensive back then. I spent like 10. It's not important. Droideka and Zeta is pretty good for that event. Okay, I spent a lot of time. I know some useless Galactic Republic are going to be best in slot. Well, that's kind of my question. Going back to a new raid now, it's like, are we getting back to Crate? I enjoyed the hell out of Crate. Crate is some of the best content I think they made in the game. If you're a theory crafter, if you just enjoy like mod puzzles, blah. Front to back. Again, I really, my only complaint with the first raid was I had a lot of fun doing the process. I wish that there was a reward for improving my own score, because there's not. You are losing resources to have fun with the raid. The guild reward box is good, but again, that's that shift, right? There is no reward to overperforming aside from you buy some breathing room for other people to cut corner, which like that's not nothing, right? I was happy to do how much I was doing, and other people were just like posting 2.7s or whatever. I'm not asking for a gold medal on that, but it would be nice if I got like a gold medal of resources for doing it for the personal track. The guild reward track is pretty good, and guilds are taking it seriously now though. Hey, those rewards are pretty good. I'm glad that we're getting good reward. It creates a layer of apathy between me wanting to do the bare minimum and optimize for the bare minimum versus me wanting to just like do what I did with Crate, which is like, we were like 2 months into Crate and I was still like figuring some stuff out. If you finish top 3 and raid the guild slacker must buy you a gift bundle each week. Hey, listen. The possibilities are endless. If you do a guild in-house, the GAC, loser buys you like the relic Monday relic pack or whatever. Sure. You don't understand what the personal max isn't ungodly. That's the like, you do the math. I have gone past the point of carrying to the point that like I used to have this stat memorized off top. I'm pretty sure it's like the moment that you invest one relic gate for just solely for your personal box, it's like you have lost resources. And in Crate, good God, in Crate it was, you had to spend like 15 plus R8s to like get to 5 2.7s. They're like, But yeah, anyway, so when we talk about an upcoming raid, I'm happy with the once a week cadence now. I think it's fine. I think it's in a good spot. Ease some time crunch there. Yeah, I hope to get more back to basic Galaxy of Heroes encounter design. But yeah, we talk about, they're making Gungans for the raid. That makes sense. I think my biggest fear is that when you think about what they could do with kit thematics for Gungan design, it would be extremely easy to inject a large amount of randomness into their kit design. And randomness can have a healthy place in game design, but I don't want it in competitive modes. And I also don't want it in my raid modes. So honestly, it's... So, I guess the randomness that I'm in favor of is randomness that asks you a question in response to the results. If it's randomness that gives you options after the fact, sure, that could be a very interesting way to use randomness. If it's randomness that says you have to restart this battle 5 more times because we're just not going to roll you the mechanic that you need, I don't want that in Galaxy Heroes, personally. That is not for me. Gungans really love their home planet. They wanted this faction to represent the mode. Blah, blah, blah. Significant upfront power for them shield generated to defend against any would-be attackers. There's a member that may cause a bit of disarray to battle plans. Yeah, I mean, Yeah, I mean, people have talked about what a Jar Jar kit could look like in this game since the dawn of time. It's just, right? You could very easily imagine maybe he's confused heavy on enemies, or maybe he could cause negative effects to allies. And if it's hey, yeah, randomly stun your ally, okay, man. They just 2% dodge RNG, 5% or 15% base resists. I understand why it exists in the game. I have come to terms with it, even though I don't like it being there in TWGAC. I don't need another. Just because I have reached a equilibrium where I don't actively rage at it anymore, I really don't need the extra. All right, we already got a little bit of that where I lost a GAC match because IG-12 just wouldn't call pause to assists at 50% chances. Right? I think one thing this game does a lot that I really love is they trade out RNG for conditionals. I would love to see more of that in these kits and not default back to hey, 20% chance to just instantly kill one of your characters. We'll see, man. Yeah, I mean, as always, hopefully the kits are good and fun and interesting. Hopefully the raid is good and fun and interesting. The thing we are going to end up ultimately talking about today is the thing that is facing all new characters, which is the larger meta concerns and what the road ahead did not contain, which is PvP is past the point of needing help. And it was not here. And I wanted to believe it would be here, but I had already made peace with the possibility that it wouldn't be. I think the larger issue is I struggle a lot lately with I think PvP players probably represent an increasingly smaller amount of the player base. Not that it was probably big to begin with, but at one point, how important are we really? How much should CG really care about us if you're just looking at it from their perspective as trying to keep as many people happy as possible? And I'm pretty loud about PvP issues, but at some point I'm increasingly getting self-aware of does this just sound stupid from their perspective? It's yeah, okay, the GAC meta kind of sucks for 100 people. That's 100 people. I don't know, man. It's not here. I really hope that we hear about it soon because, right, Lord Vader was the last Galactic Legend to exist that did not have a consistent GL counter to it. And when I say a consistent GL counter, what I mean is more 3 to 4 to 5 was what most GL situations were. GLs are increasingly unpostable. CG stated in the past that they thought that this was a problem. It's a problem. They sort of addressed it in the past, but at the same time, they buffed some non-GL teams that also kind of helped push us in this direction even further. But CG continues to release new teams that are good on offense and bad on defense. CG continues to post Datacrons that are good on offense, bad on defense. That's a little bit not true right now with Doubt. Doubt is pretty good on defense. I will give it credit for that, but that is a temporary thing. This is a permanent solution. And the normal response that I would expect here is, hey, this is only affecting a small amount of the player base, to which I would respond to you that people are buying Galactic Legends for $5 to $10. If you think this isn't going to affect you now, things will change very quickly given enough time. Lightspeed bundles? Yeah, LSPs. Lightspeed bundles, they are working on rubber band mechanics, and that is excellent. Rubber band mechanics are good, but what it also means is that they are starting to accelerate people towards an issue that I'm trying to be a bit of a canary in the coal mine for, which is CG is adding these teams, these characters. We're getting Amidala as a conquest character. We're getting Jar Jar Binks as a legendary. And the thing that I really don't want to be a broken record for, but I kind of have to be because this is just constantly looping in my head and this is affecting my judgment of all future investments, is okay, so we'll probably need some Gungans for the raid. Probably get Queen Amidala. But like, everything that you post on defense either has 5 counters or is just going to get overkilled. And I don't need any more teams on offense. So why care? I mean, I'll slightly care if like the kit's good and fun, but the 5v5 meta is in need of help. TW is in need of help. If I assume we're gonna get a Galactic Legend this year, and TW is an 8-size board where there are 8 GLs. I don't think it's any minor surprise right now that not a whole lot of GLs getting posted. Yeah. Wait to cut for the map at 22? I mean, listen. This is the thing that I've talked about and will always talk about is, right now, we have 44 teams on a 20, or it's like 43 teams on a 22 size board. I'm not counting like random small stuff. I'm saying like a established team from a faction. I would say like maybe 30 of them are like, you would think about them on a regular basis as PvP relevant. And there are 22 usable slots. And if CG is asking me to get hype about team number 44 and 45, given the other issues that we have going on, I'm not. I'm sorry. I want to be. I desperately want to be. I love new kits. I love new characters. But the broader framework of the game is leading to this dynamic, which is, it's a little bit of apathy. It's like, I hope the mechanics are cool and good, and I think I skimmed a little bit and I saw the designer talking about putting a lot of work thinking into how to design Amidala. We'll talk about that. That gives me hope, but right? We're about to get Darth Bane. Darth Bane, pretty strong sounding kid and character. I already know how I'm going to beat Darth Bane on defense. And I already know that most people are going to use Darth Bane with Sith Eternal Emperor to invalidate a team that I put some theory crafting into for 2v5 undersized banners on offense. So it's like, it's a small board and it keeps getting smaller. The only good team we had was Lord Vader Piet. It put some pressure on bounty hunters. It kind of forced your opponent into defaulting to stuff like JML. And they really used Bo-Katan so that now bounty hunters and Bo can kind of fork LV where you can't block against both. And it's just like, man, that to me really feels like a signal. Like, CG built a heat-seeking missile for the one remaining GL team that was dangerous in the meta right now. And the more I keep on thinking about this, it's like, I'm pretty sure I'm in the minority that likes defense to be good. And I think CG is probably doing some amount of frustration management where they're like, people want to do their battles and they want to attack and they want to clear and they want to win. And maybe I'm like overly cautious about this, but I'm one of those sickos who like I want to spend all of my prep for a season not scouting people, but like I spend a bunch of work on my teams in advance, and then I like watch a bunch of holds rack up. But every time I do that, on the other end, that experience sucks for that other person. So like, on some level, if the future of PvP is more about people clearing, I think if it goes more in a more efficiency direction, like there is a possible reality where like maybe that just works better for CG and practice because people aren't getting as frustrated. It's just we're gonna have to make peace with that and figure out where we want to position ourselves now. So, all that is to say, yeah, it's tricky, right? We were able to make the last 5v5 season kind of work, where I kind of focused on off-meta battles that were like pretty much certifiably just gonna lose me in the match. But hey, dude, we got Zori to beat Ray, like in a pretty reliable fashion. We learned that matchup. That was fun. So like, you know, Tass is out here in the mines doing dirt, working that efficiency game, and like, maybe it's just not for me. Maybe I think I might just be the outlier in some of these respects. That like, maybe I'm just gonna end up going a different direction, right? Like maybe the correct way to play the game or the optimal way to play the game and what I end up doing is just gonna diverge. I'm not talking to like, you know, Urz was also out there in the trenches doing dirt. I don't mean to that extreme. It's still going to be in my nature to kind of want to play to win. But I think for now, given the current dynamics in PvP, I think I'm just going to have to start dropping some more matches. I do not have it in me to stream 8 Galactic Legend versus non-Galactic Legend battles for, you know, 64 whatever banners with no stakes. I need the danger. All right, what are you able to say? I'm catching up. Sorry, that was a long thing. Bane must be nice. Bane has a cool kit. What's up, beat? I am excited for Bane. I'm a defense head, right? And what I see in Bane is I see my demise. I see the teams that I used to be able to get defensive holds with getting killed for, what is it, 67? 68? I guess I haven't really looked at how powerful their protection region is going to be. Maybe they'll get like a little bit of protection or health chip. But like, yeah. I don't know what the solution is, right? Like, I'm out here advocating that like, I wish defense teams were harder again, and I don't know if that's the majority opinion. I kind of suspect it's not. But just like, yeah, it's just kind of where my head is at right now. It's what I've been dealing with 5v5. It's why, despite the fact that I hate 3v3, it's I'm not pro 3v3. I'm just enjoying 3v3 more, and I'm enjoying 3v3 a hell of a lot more. This season has been very cool. I'm posting LV like Marauder Sith Empire Trooper, and it's actually got a hold somehow. Bringer is back. Urz is walking his own path. Listen, if he's happy with what he's doing, I understand why you say that, but I mean, he's got to take care of himself, right? Watch out for number 1. Gorilla versus Urz. Yeah, there's some good throwbacks there. But anyway, so while I went off of that huge tangent, I did note the fact that they were talking about how she has a very stark design and they wanted to apply that mechanically. That stood out to me because, again, one of the things I will always go to bat for with this game is that the kit design does not get enough credit. And I know that we got a... Where was the... Wait, they talk about the decoy here. I'm trying to be a little bit defense brains, but it sounds like the decoy will force something to happen, causing a trade-off, causing a negative penalty. I have a little bit of hope that depending on what that penalty is, it might at least create some defensive viability. Or it's just going to get killed by a Galactic Legend for 1v5 undersized banners. But, yeah, I mean, Conquest characters also just really kind of tend to be where CG is doing some of the most interesting things these days. I'm a little bit surprised that we see Jar Jar as a legendary and Amidala as the Conquest, but I mean, on some level, I feel like the distinction kind of doesn't really matter from a power sense nowadays. It's kind of just how you obtain them. I think the whole right. It used to be that it was like, what were the Epic Confrontation? It used to be that like the legendary, or no, it was Journey. Was it Journey under legendary? I don't entirely remember. I'm like fuzzy on this. Right, but there was like a hierarchy, right? There's like a generally understood like GLs are the hardest to get, so they're the strongest. And then Conquests were kind of under that, and then I probably still like Epic Confrontation, then like Journey, then Legendary or whatever. It's like a loose tiering system based on how it was obtained. And like unironically right now, especially with the current Datacron season, I can tell you for a fact, non-GLs are harder to beat than GLs. It's just the dynamic. Because I used to talk about this a lot, that the dynamic that GL teams made is GLs were almost like a capital ship or something, right? They were building out a rule set of like, you know, you can do this or you can't do that. Leia says you can't decrease your cooldowns. Jabba says you can't desist. Well, Bouch says, but you get what I'm saying, right? Siege is designing these puzzles and encounters. And the non-GL teams, the puzzle and encounter they have designed for you is we're going to eat your face. And we're not going to let you play. And they don't play it fair. GL teams tend to play fair. That, like, I feel like the age of GLs on defense, if you're a player who is willing to look up and learn the off-minute counters, the age of GLs on defense is kind of over, and we're just kind of in this age of GLs beat the non-GL bad guys, and it kind of diffuses the tension. Maybe if Amidala rolls around, if she can be kind of an extra non-GL baddie, because I think Seer Malicos plays this up to a pretty good degree, right? I think Malgus used to do this. We did get Cal, so like Cal's kind of a heat-seeking vessel for that purpose if you really want him. But maybe if we can reach a critical mass where there are enough non-GL villains that an opponent holding 8 GLs to be like, aha, I'm gonna overkill all of your non-GL, you know, crazy stuff. Maybe. Or we're gonna get 9 GLs on offense and a 11 size board, and there's just gonna be no room for any mix-ups left. We'll see. But yeah, hopefully the kit's excellent. CG said that there was a light side kit coming next, right? So I kind of imagine, in time frame wise, it'd be summer. It'd be a 3 months to unlock her. I assume she's next. So depending on the timetable for when we're gonna start seeing these characters, we might start hearing about this stuff real soon. And also, I feel like there was one little piece of tidbit here. Where was this? Also, when I found I was going to get to work on her, just to make up the crown, she's everything. Want to make her as iconic as the look. I feel like they said something about her having unique things to add to her team around that time. So we expect to see Gungans, but I think we also expect to see maybe some new support characters for her. Oh, was it above? I scrolled down way too far. This is like what stuck out to me the most. I really like this interview piece, but I blew past some information. Also, Jun Kensel, thank you for the 22 months. Much appreciated, man. Be a future Conquest Chase character. Oh, yeah. Accompanied by 2 characters for the Galactic Republic faction. There's kind of a question of, like, does CG expect Gungans to be a official PvP faction, or maybe CG has in mind that, like, you'd play in the raid, Jar Jar rolls with Gungans in the raid, you play with Amidala in other modes, maybe you're rolling Jar Jar into that. I mean, who do we expect? It's Panaka, right? Panaka's gotta be one. Senator Palpatine, I think, makes a lot of sense, and I think should make the cut. I think Panaka Palpatine makes a lot of sense. And then you could do, like, Jar Jar Palpatine's energy. Padawan Obi-Wan, also, ooh. Fuck. I think you could do some really fun stuff with that. Ah, man. Like, if you're talking about the episode 1, if you're talking about Rolling Crew, then you kind of can't cut Obi-Wan. I think if you're thinking of a team for Padme, Panaka is basically the Drogon of this squad, would he not be? And then really at that point, it's more of like relative iconic role to her. And at least in terms of kit design, I feel like Palpatine could be some like juicy, interesting stuff. Alexander Palpatine is really tricky. Make him full light side when the story he never was. You would kind of have to. For the balance and design of the game, it would have to. Do we have any existing example characters of like people pretending to be stuff that they were like assigned an alignment? You can even bring an N1 down the road and make him the pilot. I mean, listen, man. If we're trying to read some tea leaves here, they had their eyes on the Endurance recently. It's possible. Cassian's Omicron would be comparable in some aspects. I don't think that's as clean because Cassian was designed independent of the Omicron. Their Palpatine was light side with Sith synergy. The game... Okay, they printed Bo-Katan, who is actually fairly flexible in what she wants to do, right? Watt slots into Bo-Katan Mandalore pretty damn well. But, like, I'm not going to say they're not going to do that, but we also see a lot of teams lately ship with if all allies, right? If all allies are X. All allies can do a cool backflip. That... Man... You guys are right. Like, I think flavor-wise, you could do some really interesting stuff with Palpatine. I think Episode 1, Kenobi, would probably be easiest. Or easier. Or maybe they shelve Palpatine for something in the future. Palpatine feels like he'd be a separatist GL. Well, that was kind of the weird thing. Honestly, when I saw this, I made a lot of assumptions, and then I actually read it. In my mind, Amidala was gonna be the Galactic Republic GL, but she's not, but she's here early. So where... Because Galactic Republic is a huge faction. If you look at who is likely to get a GL next, I think... You know... Large faction doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna happen, but you look at the focus of what they're doing as well. I think GR Separatists as the next two GL factions makes some sense. But if Amidala is not the GL, I mean, would you do Palpatine? Thematically, don't know how it would work with kids. Yeah, that's how you guys kind of convince me, is like, you could do some really cool flavor, but I don't know how easy that would be to do. That would be so hard. It's like a lot of cool stuff that you could explore, but I don't know how practical it would be to introduce to the game. I think flavor-wise, you could do something interesting with Palpatine as a support, kind of a manipulator, kind of like a Hermit Yoda-esque, like not really in combat, but just like issuing out orders or giving out buffs or stuff like that. And I think it would be just fine. I think the moment that you start about like GR Sith hybrids, I feel like things get a little bit weak. More than a lot of it weak. Pong Krell, the Jedi anti-clone. If they work on a GR, like, you get a GR Separatist bridge where it's actually just like GR people who become Separatists. You get Palpatine, Krell, Dooku. I mean, there's got to be two more that I'm not thinking of. The JMK GRGL. Dude, I swear to God, I'm not doing a bit when I say this. I just don't think of him that way. He 100% is. Oh, okay. It would be more like Separatists, I guess. I'm not doing a bit when I say that. It just... Because, like, yes, JMK runs with Padme and like, Cat, who are GR. So, he's a... But, like, I think it just speaks to how big the GR faction is, that, like, it doesn't... He's still just largely, like, GR Jedi-oriented. Alright, so... Maybe the Separatist side. Probably the Separatist side. Wait, so does that have implications then, I guess? Bina Madala could be a JMK lifter. Okay. Hey, yeah. Let's remember how this game works for a second. JMK lifter, Padme lifter. I mean, GR touches on a lot of stuff. JMK team is established. It's established and everything slots in well with each other, but that doesn't mean that CG can't put a remix on it, right? Night Sisters had a general function and flow, and they still put out Marin, and that stuff just worked. And it, like, Marin kind of reworked the identity of how they wanted to run. Right? How you tell somebody 2 years ago that Night Sisters no longer care about zombie, and what's the reaction that you're gonna get? You know what that reaction is gonna be. You know. You, don't give me any of that. All right, so like I trust CG that if it's something that they want to do, they'll make it work, and that they get to use Cat elsewhere. I mean, like, listen, we've talked about this for how long now? Of like the moment that CG frees Cat and Maul, things get weird real quick. What would that even do to the game if Cat freed up? Because, like, on some level, I keep jokingly saying this, but CG put out a Maul Datacron in set 13. You got to look real closely. You got to read up. But the Maul Datacron says you no longer post Maul with Lord Vader. If it's, you know, in GAC, because Bo-Katan can ignore stealth. So Maul's just free. We're 1.5 matches away from a season concluding where I never posted Maul with Lord Vader. And I'm 6-1 right now. And you could argue it should have been 7-0. I just didn't prep enough. That we're, you know, whether that lasts or not. That is a thing that has happened that kind of can't be taken away. So if CG can free the Maul, who the hell knows? Cat freed up is dangerous? It is. It is and it isn't, right? Like, it's like, people think about like Rey Cat, but I'm still gonna die on the hill that Rey Cat is never as crazy as it sounds, right? 50% offense, you think about like, oh man, you get the Cat bonus to Rey. It's not enough, right? Especially if we talk about like a post Relic 9 era, we talk about a post Datacron era where we never really see Crons add as much offense as they add bulk. The only time that we ever really saw Rey just like nuke your face off was, it was set 1 or set 2, right? I think it was set 1 where they gave Rey the 4x ult, and that's enough to get over the hump. That just like blinding light flash in your face and just like, yeah, no, I don't exist anymore. A hungry cat is, dude, a hungry cat is, listen, there are people out there who never accepted it and are just out there like, yeah, I just beat such and such with Dash. I just beat JMK with Dash. Fine. I just beat JMK with Batman. And like, I still think some of the most iconic moments in this game are when there is a good character who multiple teams want to lay claim to, and you're just like, it's like the Marvel Civil War meme, right? It's like, okay, which side are you on? And like, the more viable each side of the argument gets, the spicier things get. And I don't know whose side I'm on. I honestly, that's just something that I hadn't really looked at until now. I was kind of just into like the, yeah, why would I not post JMK with Cat? I'm not, like, you could arguably separate them if you're holding JMK. I just don't hold it JMK. So there might very well be people who were out there asking that question already. It was not me. Yeah, it was the very first set. Whole idea is counter to modern CG design though. Is it though? Dude, like, Maul is freer than he's ever been. I don't agree. I don't think I agree with you. I get, like, you could argue in some moves it has and some moves it hasn't, but like, again, man, like, Bo-Katan Mandalore is literally a better team in 5v5 GAC when you give her someone outside the faction. She has purity checks, but they are not essential. And the problems that you can solve for breaking the purity check are better than what she gives you for having 5. I lost like 2 or 3 battles with her in GAC because I tried to run 5 Lightside Mandalorians, where the solution was either grab Swordy or grab Wap. And like, honestly, like, I think a lot of the teams that have been printed lately don't let you consider that. And like, listen, that's playing Swugga, right? You're given a problem and you have a library of how many characters now as like possible solutions, and then you're how many times have we like done the roster walk where you're just like, you go open up SOH.GG, you start scrolling, and you're just like, oh, VIP. Maul does an AoE before he starts doing blast, so we don't have to worry about revive blocks. She's just in stealth. Or you look at Watt, it's like, oh, Watt putting tank tech on pause is kind of like having Maul's Mandalore. Not entirely, but not far off. 260? That was the question that I lost the Swugga trivia. Yeah, listen. I know a lot of words and a lot of kits. I don't know how many kits I know. That's kind of just the general vibe that we're at right now. It's a lot of kits. Yeah, this feels like a roughly 260-ish level scroll that I'm doing right now. I'll believe you. That's a number. You could have just made it up, but that's a number. And dude, we're all over the place today. I mean, it's... We just as like people who are watching my streams, we do a lot of state of the game talking lately. But yeah. I mean, listen, as much as I just said, maybe if defense isn't going to be viable, then I just need Jar Jar to be as RNG as possible. Because then we can just force defensive, you just high roll somebody. Reaper GG, thank you for the Twitch Prime. That took me a second to figure out how to say her name. I apologize for that. Thank you for the Prime. So, given the state of the game, given the fact that we are increasingly in this stage where I don't think super teams have really justified themselves yet, or at least super teams are kind of at war with Datacrons right now, where like, easiest example, I fought some team that was like, oh, what was it? It was like SLK, Malicos. I want to say there was like, it was like 3 power teams in one. And I looked at it and I was like, man, that is a crazy team. And then I used Africron against it, and it was a 10 times easier fight than if I just fought Seer Malicos. I think if we are in this stage where CG is trying to enter the age of super teams, I know that JMK seems kind of locked in, and that's for a pretty good reason, because he's pretty well locked in right now. He's got a lot of what he likes. I would not be shocked if Padme ends up slotting in pretty well for JMK. I think it makes some sense. Whether or not she's going to want a free cat, there's just a world where it's like, yeah, you just Padme cat. Or, sorry, Amidala cat. Sorry, spoilers. Spoilers for the 25th anniversary. What if it's just JMK cat, Padme, Amidala? I'm saying that Padme Amidala is 2 separate, as in Padme Amidala plus Queen Amidala, not just the first name, last name. You run double Padme, right? Could that not be it? Or consider, they say that they're printing Padme with the 2 characters. Now hear me out. We've already established maybe decoy. Troll F decoy. So they're a little bit coy with the details. But there's a question of, does she need to be the lead to make a decoy? Because if she doesn't, there's a world where JMK becomes a 6-man team, that the decoy is the tank. And they said that they're printing... I can't say Padme Amidala as 2 characters. Amidala Padme? Do you just say it like that and people just look at you funny? Is that the play? JMK Amidala Padme. Yeah, ship it. Just send it. If they don't understand, don't explain it. Yeah, if they're making 2 characters, and if she is ostensibly gonna possibly be able to replace herself, maybe this is just a JMK lifter, right? JMK Cat. Amidala. We're just gonna have to agree with that. Padme is Padme and Amidala is Amidala. Don't ask any more questions past that point. All right, this could be JMK Cat, Amidala, +2. Or maybe, you know, whether or not you want to bring Cat with, I would imagine Cat still makes a lot of sense, but who knows? Probably just Queen? Yeah, but what happens when they add Geonosian Brood Queen as the Separatist GL? Then you've dug yourself in a hole. Or you just make it QA. Just make it extremely confusing for people who work in tech. I'll just ship it as Amidala for that. That's fine. But yeah, 3 characters shipping. Could be its own team. Kazan to JMK, or maybe they just make you choose. We'll see. Honestly, the more I talk about it, I'm getting a little bit more excited to see this. Because, I mean, listen, man. JMK... I've kind of been talking more lately how I think about how Galaxy Heroes, the meta needs a villain, or multiple villains ideally. Because meta villains is how you make new releases. Well, it's one way of making new releases exciting is, how does this relate to the meta villain, or who currently has to deal with the meta villain that you can create opportunities elsewhere. And I'm not saying that JMK existed for years before we got stuff like Riva. It's fine that he has stuff to deal with him at this point. But maybe this is going to be CG kind of, you know, put him back on his rightful throne. Every single GAC strategy had to start off with, okay, what's your plan against JMK? Right? If you did not have an answer to that question, you either stopped playing or you ended up in some weird battles like I did, where I was just like, maybe Radis if they just never aim at Radis and I get 20 exposes and they don't cleanse it and they don't get protection up, and it's fine. It's fine. We'll see. The solution is more lifters, obviously. I mean, legitimately, this could be a direction, right? If the assumption right now is that GLs have become a little bit too passive compared to non-GL teams, then maybe the solution is just that you start propping up GLs and, you know, instead of nerfing teams to put GLs back on their throne, maybe you give them options to retake their throne, right? Okay, if you go look at, like, powerful teams right now, right? Powerful non-GL teams. A lot of them are just in your face immediately and do not stop. That, like, this is why so many off-meta counters are like, listen, Grievous with Staff just came out. I was like, man, this is a good kit. I don't see it being a lot of non-GL teams. And then we messed around in Squad Arena. It's like, oh, well, even without the Omicron, I was kind of able to, like, not entirely beat Rey, but it was, like, playable. We did almost beat her once. Right? It's like, GLs let you do a lot. They let you get away with a lot. Riva punches you in the face. It's just like, bam. The gunshot went off. And it's like, you're probably not playing the video game. We got like 5 people at 430 speed that are about to just nuke your entire squad for everything it knows and loves. Good luck. And then you have like the Seer and the Malicos type. Or the Treya Omicron, Savage Omicron, where it's like, we're not fast. But you're also not killing us. And we're also gonna blow you up and punish you just like slightly later. Don't worry about it, it's fine. More lifters, 1GL4 lifter super teams. It might just be the future, right? I don't think consolidation is there yet, but I could see that being a direction for the game this year and next year is... I mean, we talk about bridges in the past of like, you know, say something like, oh, what if, what was... I would talk about bridges for like, I think Scoundrel Rebel. We kind of got that with Sana. Like, instead of cross-factional bridges, what if we just get like cross-mechanical, right? OCG just starts focusing on characters that kind of ties two iconic characters within a faction to cooperate slightly better together. Right? Maybe that's all it needs. It might be. Huh. Well, we'll see. I'm not sure. Well, I guess we can roughly know how soon we're going to see Amidala, right? It's going to get through Bane and then the usual cadence from when we get the kit for the next Conquest character past that point. So it's not going to be too long. But yeah, I still... It really just came down to... Right, we don't know too much about this. We know that it's the... Is it just a force taunt? Because it's kind of what they started exploring with Gideon, right? I don't know if it's going to be like you have to target them, or if it's just going to be like a lock taunt like Gideon has where you can still kind of get around it. No, they set it up here, right? I could have sworn they said it somewhere. Permanent taunt. Okay, they say permanent taunt. Permanent taunt, it does not mean has to hit, so there's probably still going to be some ways to get around it. You talk about JK Mark, you talk about taunt ignoring. There are ways. Well, this is probably going to be a lock taunt like what we see with Gideon, so yeah. Maybe keep small from increasing cat CDs. I'm not even sure if that's like the axis that CG would need to be worried about for this team, right? And their biggest predator is something like Riva. And we've seen, you know, CG has started printing characters who can like punish you for being a debuff heavy plan. We saw with Captain Rex, we saw with Bo-Katan Mandalore. There are ways. And like, you think about what CG could do with Jabba. So again, talk about that rant that not rant, but whatever tangent that I did earlier. You look at SRH.GG and Night Sisters is like a 5% counter or something. Night Sisters versus Jabba is not a 5% counter. It just takes it like, it takes a remod. It's probably a guide that I should make. I really ought to make that because people don't know, and it's a shame that people don't know. But also, like, are people even posting Jabba right now? I don't think so. So like, how useful would it really be? But yeah, I think CG has an opportunity where like, I'm not saying that it has to be this like escalatory like, well, CG released a counter to this team, and then they released a counter to the counter, and then they released a counter to the counter, the counter, the counter, you could drive yourself crazy with that, right? And to some level, I think Datacrons often occupy this space. But you think about what they could add. They could maybe add a Captain Rex-ish effect to JMK. They can't gain Terminator, but they sure did give Marin that clause, didn't they? Where you could gain Terminator in cases where Terminator was blocked. And wouldn't it be interesting if they released the GR support with Marin style rule set, but Captain Rex style mechanic set that allowed the team gain Terminator when you apply a purge? Yeah, later, mate. Appreciate you hanging out. Right? The mechanic set of this game is vast enough that like you could do so much spicy stuff. So if this is the direction they want to go, you could think of some nasty ways real quick to like JMK goes from only I can, or nobody can gain Terminator and that's fine by me, to you can't gain Terminator and I can, and buckle up. You start asking yourself, like, okay, well, how locked in is Ahsoka Padme GK really? Or Ahsoka Padme Mace, or whatever mode that you're in, whichever configuration that you're in. All it takes is a slight shift of perspective, and CG can really make you ask some questions. Maybe, you know what would be funny? What if they made it so that you could get JMK squad could gain Terminator, but only if Cat is not present? If all allies are GR and no allies are unaligned force users. Boom. Done. Great. We'll see. A lot of questions. It's not a lot of answers, but we'll see. If all GR Jedi, well, unless Amidala's been holding out, I don't think it's gonna be all GR Jedi. But like, you know. And then yeah, they got guild gifting. I mean, it's ways for CG to make money. Sure, it's there. I don't know if this ever creates abuse cases with like people doing shady stuff. It's there. I don't know. Enjoy it if you want it, I guess. Maybe you could have some funny things for like this is the thing, right? Is like if the game had like potential for doing like in-house tournaments or whatever, like maybe that framework could be useful. But yeah, I don't know. It's there. If you can monetize the richest person in your guild, then congratulations. You know how the framework. just make them really grateful. You promise to do their braids. I don't know. Go with God. You can figure it out. I believe in you. Did I scroll past? Kind of scroll through this too fast. Okay. False Snap's most leader. We expect him to be a leader, so sure. Unique technology. Shield generator provides as a way to avoid damage early in the fight. I assume this is going to be like what the Separatists did in the Assault battle, ironically, where it's just like you start with shielding, you get benefits while the shielding is up. The shielding goes down, the team kind of falls apart. I mean, thematically, that makes sense. Decisive attacker that sets up his teammates for success and inflicts sizable damage to the enemy. Okay. Covers the enemy debuffs and ramps damage. Okay. I think that is willing to assist his enemies or his allies in need and provide coverage with shield. Okay, so immediate takeaway is that if they do the shielding as an expression of protection up, then the team will scale with health, which means that the team will scale with relics, which means that the team could very well expect you to dump a huge amount of relics to maximize the amount of shield uptime. You can think about this as kind of like the dynamic with Bastila JML, where just the bigger you make that purple thing, they literally could be like designing a team around that style of mechanic, where you're just trying to keep the purple up, and as long as the purple is up, you're good. But the moment that an enemy team figures out how to break the purple, you're headed in a certain direction, and it's not good. But that makes a fair amount of sense to me, right? I would not be shocked if it has flavors of JML Bastila. What is the last? The more important thing than Bastila. But Bastila lead JML. Jar Jar, yeah, we already kind of talked about it. Gungan support who's not afraid to eject the battle and offer his own brand of help. I guess it's also a question of if he's going straight to guide or if he's going to be timed. We have Bo-Katan on a monthly cadence right now, but I assume that's going to be specific to her epic confrontation stuff. Yeah, we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised with, like within 2 or 4 weeks we start seeing Gungans. When did the Black Raid come out? Because didn't we say, or didn't they say there was roughly gonna be like 9 months after that? So we kind of know when the new raid is possibly gonna hit, which means we kind of know when the marquees would kind of have to hit with the raid. When was it? Wasn't it like October, November, something like that? Anybody here know? Plus Martez sisters. I don't know if I see that. Crate was May 4th. There's no way. Oh, Crate was May 4th. No, when was the bike raid? New raid, new speeder bike pursuit, November 9th. After we got this, wasn't it like a couple days after? I'm just gonna say it was probably November. We know it wasn't October at this point. It was November, so let's say we're maybe 3 months into this. Maybe 2 to 3. So raid is probably in 6 months. 5 to 7 range. So we might not actually not see the Gungan soon. I mean, if they're willing to talk about it, then you would assume it's on the sooner side of things, but there isn't really a whole lot to do with that information aside from just like Horde. Which is kind of just the default state that we're in nowadays anyway, right? And there was mid-November. That's what I'm thinking. So, like, yeah, we're 3 months in with possibly 6 more to go. So yeah, you would assume like 3-month character cadence from going from release to farmable. There's a window. We might not hear about Gungans for a second here. But also, honestly, like, we got Stap. Especially, right, like, we assume, you know, like, we got Chieftain Warrior as setup for the raid. That might not be the last Separatist thing we see for this. I would not be shocked if it was. Yeah, they say nothing is finalized, but they're leaning towards Separatists. I think we get something new Geonosian. That's like probably not a hot take, but it feels like at this point they have crossed off enough T's that it's like Geonosians. I mean, they got Poglamacrod, but if GAC is the more popular mode between the two, it would make sense for something to happen. I don't know if it's gonna be like a, you know, I'm not making any assumptions there. But it would make some sense. 123 was the end of your guild's first payback run. Yeah, so we're loosely in the ballpark where it should, right? We're kind of at 3 months at a possible. Again, I wish I had receipts for this. 9 months was what I remember hearing. Yeah, somewhere in there. Let's see. We did enjoy talking about these amazing characters. Let's see. Yeah, I'm curious, right? So, one of the things when you think about the Naboo raid is, I mean, that was the entire thing, right? I mean, you could say it wasn't just Naboo, right? A lot of Star Wars happens like on multiple levels simultaneously. But I think Naboo is even more pronounced than the usual, where you have 3 fronts. Wait, was it? You had the palace, you had the field, you had the space. And a lot of CG's recent raid design, I mean, bike raid had waves, but it was still roughly the same thing. It was just like the waves were, well, phases, whatever. The waves are more just a way to like cycle in characters, but it was still roughly the same encounter, right? The crate raid was you were fighting the crate. Are we gonna go back to a more traditional, like, you could very easily imagine there being like 3 phases. There's a few ways you could go there. Wait. couple that with fending off a massive horde of battle droids, the battle for Naboo raid. So we take that as, like, it sounds like a focus on the field, right? If they're adding Gungans, you assume it's the field. If they're adding Padme, then it sounds like maybe the palace. I don't think the space side makes sense. Like, even if they add the N1, it would still be not really a whole lot of era appropriate. Not exactly that it's, like, essential in this game. We've had a lot of flexibility on that front, but I think it's probably just going to be a field battle, right? I think that probably makes sense. Yeah, especially the statement. On-screen synergies and seasons used for ship record events. Yes, they do. It's a pretty good effect. Alright, so there's not a whole lot here to tea leaf past what they're saying what they're saying, right? They say they want to get to it. Okay. So yeah, this is very much just February. If you look at the last couple of years, I mean, listen, the whole January marquee thing, I think that could still be argued, because I think 1 year we got just a character, and then 1 year we got character ship. This year it was just ship, but it's still kind of that. February, if you're looking for patterns, February has always been like the kickoff for the near future content thing. And like, as much as I was hoping for PvP related stuff here, I do think that it can be argued that like February is not the place that it was going to happen. Right? The most iconic moments of big PvP update news were like last 4 months of the year. It seemed to be a repeating trend. So yeah, we'll figure out ways to try to keep things fresh, keep things fun. At the end of the day, the whole reason why I started streaming this game, the GAC especially, was finding out cool things that were possible, wanting to share it with people. And we got some of that with the last 5v5. It's just going to be a constant war between try to do cool thing and am I okay with certifiably just throwing around, essentially. Because I'm not, at my hearts, I'm not really okay with that, but I would rather play this game than not. I would rather find a way to enjoy this game. So we'll see. There is no world where I'm holding 8 GLs and banner pinching. I really don't see myself doing that. Or at least if I did, I would just have to like stream the altar or something. I don't know. It's not to say that it's not a skillful thing. It's just very tedious and it takes a long time, and we'll see. We'll see where the year takes us. 2024 is going to be a great year for Galaxy Heroes. We're thrilled to be on this journey with you all. I'm curious to see what it has in store for us as well. Again, this is a lot of what we expected to see, but I think a lot of the defining moments in this game in the past have been when CG hits me with something that I didn't predict, but like ended up being a really pleasant surprise. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping for here. What surprises do you have? Or, I mean, a TW rework wouldn't even be a surprise at this point, but it's more so how would they do it, right? How would they execute it? That, I think, is where I'm hoping to be surprised. Because, yeah, I think for the current way that I experience GAC, and a lot of people that I fight against experience GAC, I don't think you could just, like, expand them. And I think TW especially is a way that you could, I think, address game health and also PvP health at the same time, because it's pretty exhausting that in TW you just have to be on call, like, not quite 24/7, but sometimes it's not far off either. And like a holiday will roll around and you can still have some wild expectations placed on you that, like, I would like to see the mode reach a, I mean, it's the exact same thing that we did with the raid, right? In the raid, they have pushed in a much more sustainable, life-friendly state. And TW was invented before a lot of these things became more significant player concerns. And I think it's just taken that same toll. And so CG can apply that same lens that they applied to the modes. I think TW would really benefit from it. I'm not going to deny that, like, maybe they end up with a difficult task where, like, I think there's a lot of people who are diehard TW right now who really like a lot of how it works. And I think you would probably end up having to sacrifice some of that if you wanted to solve some issues like availability, and even just like having an international guild can have like massive ramifications on your strategy and capabilities. And it's like that shouldn't have to be the dynamic. But at the same time, if you try to solve for that, I can imagine some TW diehards complaining at what was lost along the way. That, right, if they take TW in a more GAC-ish direction, well, if one person clears a board, then you would possibly just know the board, or you would risk, like, maybe the board's different, that you can't just, like, issue orders for, like, hey, this is our solution to the board, or stuff like that, right? But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to solve, but I think we're increasingly reached the point where I don't think we're at a critical mass just yet. I'm at like a critical or near critical mass personally, but I think the pot is going to reach boiling for the broader player base soon, and we're just kind of feeling it first. You would hate TW being 50 mini GAC style folks like people have asked for. Well, to be honest, for how it works for me, that's already kind of how it works anyway. It's usually just like, okay, that's the account that has like the best relics and datacrons. I guess I'm just taking that guy this war. So like, I'm not saying it's always that way, but like, for me, it often tends to work that way. Yeah, that kind of works that way in the Gauntlet. I mean, this is the ongoing issue, right? Gauntlet is such a small facet of the overall community, but Gauntlet works a very specific way. It has very specific concerns and interests and functions, and like, how do you like factor for both? All right. At the end of the day, the Gauntlet is a small bubble, and there's at some point, like, you know, maybe X amount of spending for the community happens there that like CG should serve their interests, but there's also a point where it's just like, hey, you're just like 600 players, and that's not factoring for the fact that Gauntlet is not all competitive. It's a smaller count than that. You know, having to kill multiple of the same team, clean up other messes, etc. That's part of the fun. Yeah, I got it. Like, it's not an easy problem to solve. I don't know, man. I've been on both sides, right? I came to the Gauntlet late, and the guild that I'm in right now came even later. But like, it's a lot of this stuff is literally for people who have been here since like day one. That it's hard to gauge how much of current TW is sacred and not. Because I was in a guild where I listen, man, that my TW policy was I'm going to kill as many teams as possible in the zone because people are going to make dumb mistakes. And if I kill more teams, then I possibly prevent people from ever making mistakes. If I rack up 4 20s or whatever on cheap counters, that's plus, right? It wasn't even for banner chasing. It was just like, I am saving my guild from getting 15s. So I've been on both sides, but just again, I really think that part of it is like, think about how people reacted to the raid. Well, okay, pause, rewinds. Think about how people reacted to challenge Rancor. That like everyone needs to be there, everyone needs to be on hand and coordinate and be here at a certain time. People were like, this is absolutely not. That's the same dynamic the TW has always had. It's just always been that way for ages, and so nobody second guesses it. But like, in terms of the impact on your life and the unpleasantness, it's a factor. But like, if you want to be in a guild that takes itself seriously and competes, you literally have to bend your schedule or find ways to make your schedule work to take TW seriously, and that's not good. You could say that is actively bad. So like, maybe there's a world where you just rip the band-aid, because I think at some point guild versus guild spirit can probably carry some amount of weight. That like even if they GACify TW or whatever solution they come up with to make it more schedule flexible friendly, you know, maybe. But yeah, staying with till 3 a.m. and then setting an alarm for 7:30. When I was taking TW seriously, I have done multiple 24-hour stints. That's just true. Like, it's not good. It's not sustainable. It is literally just a race to the bottom of your health and your burnout and your sanity. And burnout is a resource. And I came up with that off the top one time in the Gambit podcast, and it's probably one of the smarter things I've said in this game. Burnout is a resource. And the less time CG makes you use it as a resource, I think the healthier overall the game will be. And TW, right? But they fixed up with the raid. I mean, raid was not like 24 hours, but it's still time managed, right? It's less time in game. Raid feels like a better cadence now, where I'm not like, you know, I'm still just kind of like, I gotta do the bike raid again. But it's not like horrible. At least for me, for my current teams, for my current experiences, 15 minutes with like minimal restarts. And that's cool, right? That's where Crate was for me as well. I'm happy with that. Time, money, will to live. I don't really agree with the last one. It's more so just like, well, my relationship with the game is probably different. I like reading kits, so like, whereas a lot of people just view it as like slog. For me, it's like the main course. But hit on the raid and switch from the ground to the air is the Jedi confrontation. I think for the purpose of expectations, I think it's just going to be the field battle. I don't think the space battle makes sense. Maybe you could see it from the Separatist perspective. From the GR perspective, you would be like doing Naboo with like, you know, the Endurance or the Negotiator. That's, I mean, maybe they just print the N1 Starfighter and they do something with like N1 and summons and all that, right? Because that's actually, I think, all it was. That's at least all I'm remembering right now. Okay, I mean, honestly, maybe. I kind of talked myself into it with that. Who knows? We'll see. I think if they're trying to capture the essence, I think it would make a lot of sense. I think if you look how they're designing raids recently, I think field battle, given what we've seen so far, given what they released so far, given what they talk so far, setting expectations, I think field battle makes the most. Maybe they're gonna have a thing where like Amidala could be used in the field or whatever. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I guess if you really break it down, mechanically speaking, the Palace, they were still just fighting battle droids. But I guess no, the Palace there was like Droidicos and then you had them all fighting. Right. It gets messy, right? I think if they're just looking for like the cleanest, we're gonna design for this. We're gonna make a bunch of teams for this and design. I think they just stick to the field. We'll see. We'll see. But right, it kept moving. It kept doing different things. I don't think it's that simple. Oh, Helldivers just has a server capacity. Huh. That's wild. Damn, I think the game closed while I was streaming. I had it open in the background. Now I just can't get in. No. Is it on? Yeah, that's about it for the road ahead. Actually, honestly, you know, we ended up chatting more than I expected we would. You know, even if I do have concerns, I still think it's, at the end of the day, new kits and new potential will always excite me, right? But I hope, right, it's the same thing that I said for Stap. Stap, dude, the more I thought about Stap after that first stream, like, just a hell of a kit. It keeps on adding layers, and it's such a simple kit, but it just keeps on, like, the more you think about it, it just kept on doing more. For such a simple kit. It's just right? It's a simple kit, but the way that it interacts with other kits, you're just like, well, but if you, wait, right? It's like, it's very fun to think about. If PvP corrects, then yeah, I think the game will be in a pretty good state because the character design is still chugging along pretty well. I know I have my gripes about Bo-Katan Mandalore, but again, I've kind of made my peace with that. She's doing an okay thing. She's just not. She is a scoundrel when I was hoping for a light side Mandalorian, and that's fine. Queen's Gambit board game, perfect adaptation of the Battle of Naboo. Gonna be honest, not familiar. For a second, I thought you were talking about some board game adaptation of the Netflix show. Bo-Katan. She's pretty okay without her Kron, but you need to know the team, and you need to know the problems they face, and then you need to know, like, right? We have lost matches to, like, Maul targeting her, right? She's gonna need people like Watch. She's gonna need people like Sortie. But the point is that she still has gameplay options in a way that, like, hey, you even want to talk as far as, like, Aphra, right? Aphra is more Kron dependent than Bo-Katan Mandalore. As much junk as I talked about Bo-Katan, I talked it because she was so much more close and her faction was so much more close than a team like Aphra was. Aphra was just like, well, she can dogpile Sith Eternal on site, and that's probably going to be the extent of her shenanigans without her Kron. Which, it's like kind of weird funny because Aphra with her Kron is, well, Aphra with her Kron right now is more so just a I win button on offense. Aphra with her Kron before, dude, how hard is it going to be to get an Altiver? Am I just out? Standing outside the club? No. Sorry, I got completely derailed by the fact that I'm not tall enough to ride. Crowns are artifacts and Aphra's a treasure hunter. I mean, Aphra has some pretty clear ways that if CG wanted to give her more support in the future, they could. It's just that so far, CG support for her has been go get him champ for 4 months at a time. But right, it was that weird or sudden split between both times where, like, in the first Kron, because it had the correct stats and better effects, Aphra was pretty devastating as defense team. She could also be an offense I win button that everyone used it as. Now she's pretty much just an offense I win. So there's still a little bit of an evolution, even though the mechanics is kind of the same. It's everything surrounding it that has affected her ability to do some dirt. Well, damn. I was hoping to pivot to Helldivers here. I did not see that it had crashed. Are the servers at capacity or the servers having issues? Okay, it's possible that the servers just crashed. I know right before we started playing that there was like 400,000 concurrents, or like just under. Well, yeah, I don't think it's. I mean, the screen is new, but it's like at capacity. But I think the capacity might just be 0. It seems like it's 0. Everybody knows when to log in. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, this is kind of what happened, right? They run into server issues, and then everyone spams and attempts to relog, and that just ends up DDoSing their login servers even harder. Hmm. Well, the dream might be dead for the moment. The Discord is just scrolling by very fast. All right, well, I might stream some Helldivers later if it gets working. We'll see. That will be it. Otherwise, for today, we got the road ahead. We got Gungans ahead. We got Padme wherever she may sit in like 4 months. There's a small shred of me who's just an impatient little shit that would like love for some way to get Conquest characters sooner because we get a kit reveal and then it's like, well, right? It's like Bane, right? It's like, boom, we're doing Bane. It's like, oh shit. Oh, okay, well, I'll check it out in March of next year. It's fine. Getting a character for free is pretty cool. But I'm an impatient little shit. What can I say? I want to play with the toy. Alright. I'm going to go stare at this -1 for a while. Y'all enjoy the rest of your evening. Our watch has ended. We'll see where we go from here. Alright. Take care, y'all. Peace out.
The future and the fame. You waste away everything you left behind.